that was courageous. And of course, India provided 2 such vessels, and that formed a special task force, and the Navy launched what you call Operation Hunter Killer 1, 2, 3, and 4, that led to the destruction of the fleet. The United States was also instrumental in sharing crucial intelligence that led to the destruction of some of the ships, while the other intelligence was developed by the Sri Lankan Military Intelligence Service. India and a few other countries provided some components of that intelligence. So I believe that during the peace talks, the Americans, the Europeans, the Australians, even though some of those countries and individuals were lobbied, they realized the brutality of the LTT. Because during that period, during the peace talks, the LTT killed Lakshman Kadirgama, a Tamil, who was the foreign minister of Sri Lanka. And that shocked the Europeans. Kadirgama was one of the most brilliant ministers. I believe that he was the best foreign minister Sri Lanka ever had. And of course, the European Union immediately after that banned the LTT as a terrorist group. The United States had designated the LTT as a terrorist group much before. But the LTT could not receive the same amount of assistance, funding, and the freedom of operation internationally as a result of those strictures placed on the LTT. There were many arrests that were conducted in Canada, in Europe, in Australia, and in other countries. And of course, more intelligence, more cooperation became very difficult for the LTT to sustain its campaign. Now, with regard to the Sri Lankan military, the quality of the Sri Lankan soldier, the quality of the Sri Lankan officer vastly improved. I recall our governor of the North, General Chandrasiri, who was our chief of staff, him telling me that we studied every battle that was won and every battle that was lost. So the Sri Lankan military developed its professionalism. It emerged from being a ceremonial force into a professional force. It received the assistance of a number of countries. India provided very significant training. So did the United States. Gotabaya Rajapaksa, Secretary of Defense, was trained also in the United States. And many of our military officers received training in those top military academies in Britain, in the US, India, Pakistan, Bangladesh. So I want to say that the professionalism of the forces went right up. Second is the Sri Lankan Special Forces, the Special Forces community became a very remarkable organization. If you look at the initial operations of the Sri Lankan forces, it always operated with a tail, with a main supply route. But over time, with Sri Lankan officers training in Fort Bragg, in other places, they learned to operate without a tail. They build the long-range reconnaissance and strike capabilities. And in many ways, the Special Forces became the eyes and the ears of the larger infantry. And certainly, the LTT had 3 styles of fighting. One is the terrorist operations it conducted in the south, in Colombo in particular. Second is the guerrilla operations, the hit and run operations in the east it conducted. And in the Vani theater, it conducted what is called semi-conventional warfare. And we saw that the Sri Lankan police, working with those elite teams in Colombo and in the south, was able to detect and neutralize and disrupt that network entirely. So the number of terrorist attacks Colombo and the south suffered decreased very significantly 2006, 2007 and 8. I want to say that there's no country in the world that has lost as many quality leaders as Sri Lanka. Sri Lanka lost before Lakshman Kadirgama, who was foreign minister. We lost another foreign minister, Ranjan Wijeratne, who was foreign minister, was also killed. He was Minister of State for Defense. We lost a president. Another president nearly died. What is behind the eyeball? It is the brain. We lost so many generals. They were very brutally killed by the LTT. So the LTT specifically targeted these leaders in the south. But because of the close cooperation and coordination between the Army, Navy, Air Force and the police, this was accomplished. The eastern operations, Sri Lanka by that time had highly experienced commanders in the east, and many of them are present here. Very admirably, they accomplished the victory in the east. And that enabled the Sri Lankan military to operate in the Wani theatre. So in the Wani theatre, it was a high-intensity battle. It was not a low-intensity battle. And I believe that the professionalism that was displayed by those security forces is what led to the defeat of the LTT. I want to take up the issue of human rights, because I believe that this is the best moment for us to speak very openly. I visited the no-fire zone. I stayed one night in Nandi Kadar. And I interviewed many IDPs. I interviewed over 1,000 LTT members who surrendered. I also interviewed many family members of LTT members and leaders, including the mother and the father of Velupulle Prabhakaran. I had earlier interviewed Prabhakaran in 1987. In fact, my photograph that I took of Prabhakaran, my interview with Prabhakaran is published in a book titled War and Peace in Sri Lanka. So I want to share with you that based on my interviews of LTT members, those Tamil civilians in the no-fire zone, the coroners who were in the Wani and who were finally in the no-fire zone, the doctors, both the LTT doctors and the regular doctors that served in the no-fire zone, I questioned them about the civilian fatalities and civilian casualties. And this is what they had to say. They said that the army did not deliberately target the civilians. There was no purpose, the fire was no purpose, there was no purposeful killing of the civilians. Certainly, the Sri Lankan military directed fire against LTT positions. But the LTT specifically placed their weapons in certain instances very close to hospitals, very close to churches, sometimes just next to churches, and among those civilian settlements. Because even during the IPKF period, General Mehta is here, he will be witness, the LTT did exactly that. It constantly provoked the Indian military and subsequently the Sri Lankan military to attack. So the Sri Lankan military was very restrained. If you look at the arms, ammunition and the explosives the Sri Lankan military had, they could have ended this war much earlier. It's very restrained in the use of firepower. Certainly civilians did die in the no-fire zone. I know the Sri Lankan president has said no fatalities and casualties. I don't believe that. There were civilian deaths. And in my personal opinion, 1,400 civilians died in the no-fire zone. This is based on my own assessment of my own interviews. But I want to say that there was no deliberate killing of civilians. And I also want to share with you that where Sri Lanka failed, and I repeat, where the government of Sri Lanka failed miserably, was that the military was so successful on the ground. But the Sri Lankan Foreign Ministry and the Sri Lankan information capabilities that were associated with the Foreign Ministry, because the Information Ministry should cater one part into domestic, another part should be international. These two components did not reflect the ground reality on the what happened on the ground internationally. And that has been a huge failure. So the Tamil Tigers had established a state-of-the-art information and communication infrastructure globally. Previous presenter shared with you even how the Tamil Tigers used the satellite television networks. They even got an Israeli satellite provider. Despite Israelis having such a vigilance, they were able even to get the Israelis to have it. They also had a station in the United States, in Europe, but of course these stations were closed down, and eventually they moved to India. But they managed to somehow communicate and broadcast. And even to this date, they are doing is operating through front cover sympathetic organizations. And almost all the communications infrastructure Tamil Tigers had in Sri Lanka was dismantled, but they have replicated some of those capabilities overseas. For example, the voice of tigers have been replicated overseas. And that is why I believe that the Sri Lankan army should